All right, good morning, everyone. This is Dustin Gross. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this morning's webinar presented by Secupy and OneTouch. We're excited to have you all attending today and have some very esteemed speakers joining us, experts in the area of data management and security. They'll be focusing on providing best practices and all kinds of secrets to effectively unlocking data management and specifically discovering, potentially classifying and de-risking sensitive data across your enterprise. So it's my great pleasure to introduce two of our speakers today. Alon Rosenthal, who's the CEO of Secupy. Alon, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure. And Zach Rubenstein, who is both the founder and the Chief Business Strategy Officer here at OneTouch, the company that I help run marketing for as well. Excited to have you both speaking to all of us today and to learn a lot from your deep experience helping customers really lock down and better leverage the sensitive data that they've got in their organizations as a whole. So with that, let me hand things over to Zach to take us through some insights, and Alon will be presenting after that. So Zach, take it away.
Yes, thank you very much, Dustin, for the introduction. As Dustin mentioned, I'm founder and Chief Business Strategy Officer over here at OneTouch.io. Really excited to be doing this webinar with my old friend Alon. Alon, just a quick intro about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Zach. I'm Secupy CEO, co-founder. Also been doing data security for the last 15 years. I invented this notion called dynamic masking, dynamic encryption. I've been working in the industry serving Fortune 500s, and really pleasure doing that with you, Zach.
Great. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about discovery and classification. It's a real shoe-in for the conversation around the things that Secupy do. And we're now, just as of yesterday, we've got another customer that we're working really well together with. We see each other's technologies as a real enabler of the other technology. OneTouch vision has always been about not just doing the discovery and classification, but actually just making life easier for security professionals. And we'll see exactly what we've got in mind over the coming slides. So when we think about data, there's this notion of ROT data, which is redundant, obsolete, trivial data. And everyone knows that it exists, but there's actually been some numbers put out about it. And the point is that when you have that, it's either a waste of IT budget or potential security risk. And why is that? Well, if you've got too much data, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spending resources and money in order to manage that data. So that just wastes a budget in terms of the management, but also the storage of it. And also it means that you've got increased surface area because you may have copies or you may have data that you don't use anymore. And what Gartner found was that actually only 15% of your data is actually valuable. But what that means is that there's a huge increase in the amount of alerts that you get. And 93% of alerts about your data, about my data, about our children's data actually just goes uninvestigated because there's been such a massive data proliferation. Organizations just can't keep up. So the challenge has always been around that data that's really important. And when OneTouch came to market, it really understood this problem. You know, there's been this race to digitalize everything. And we've come to market and we've said, listen, you're having these breaches simply because there's too much data to look at. You don't know where to look for it first. You can't separate the wheat from the chaff. And we're going to help you do that. And we've had some really great successes. IBM is an OEM partner, Prudential, Chubb, Cigna, Wyndham. Wipro is a partner reselling our product. Actually, we work with PwC. We work with KPMG as well. But you know, I'm sure everyone here is knowledgeable about the Marriott situation, and there's a few interesting things. But obviously, the scale there is huge. But also, they've been in the news quite a lot, and we've gone in to help with some of those challenges. And I would say that one of the leading use cases that we see is M&A when companies merge together. If they had a problem before about visibility into their data, they've suddenly got this new company that they're responsible for the data, and they're completely blind as to what's there. So we're seeing more data breaches that everyone understands, and more resources being thrown at trying to understand that data. And so when we think about data, we think about adding this layer of contextual visibility. And everyone knows about discovery and classification solutions. What's different about OneTouch.io is that when we do the classification, we classify according to context. So if you think about some of these first generation tools, what you need to do is they'll classify according to sensitive data or PII. And then once you understand that PII, then you need to attach a certain context to it. When we do our search, yes, when we do our classification, yes, we do understand the PII that's there. But wouldn't it be great if you could understand the data on the basis of that business context, that business reason for processing? So, for example, why don't we already classify data when we're doing the classification according to employees or customers? In the case of one of our customers, they had a challenge that a very, very large bank said, if you want to look after our employee data, you need to show us where it is within your network. So this customer uses our solution when they do their classification to classify according to that bank's employees' data. And another way to understand contextual visibility is really the whole basis of data privacy and where it came from. Data privacy was always about the business reasons for processing. And you need to be able to report to the legal citizen, the data subject is called, why you're using their data. And this in turn created a very big burden on data security and more focus on really understanding and protecting people's data. But the good news is that say, listen, you don't need to protect all your data. You just need to make sure that you're protecting the data that you have taken for business reasons. Now, the flip side, so if you think about privacy, the context helps to understand in terms of an individual's data why you're using it for business reasons. But when it comes to security, it's all about prioritization. If you can understand the business practicality of that data, it means you can apply the correct protections, as Alon will explain soon. But it also means that you can prioritize the protections. For example, with vulnerability management and patch management, where do you deploy your patches first? And so we're changing paradigms all over the market when it comes to data security. Now, these are just some of the customer priorities. Everyone's looking for risk reduction or attack surface area reduction. And people, I would say enterprises, are looking for better ways to get to market with their products sooner. And one of the biggest challenges that organizations face, and amazing conversation just yesterday with a very large American company, is that the security team are just blocking access to different teams to data because they don't know what they've got there. And so what it means is that it hampers the organization's ability to be competitive in the market because people cannot access the right data at the right time. So when we look about the challenges of data and locking down data, it's very, very clear. Organizations don't understand data security, are afraid of that. They lock it down. It means they can't be competitive. And what they're really looking for is this contextual visibility so that they can reduce risk and prioritize their decisions and actions. And so what OneTouch offers is this all-in-one sort of solution. We call it sensitive data intelligence. So we'd say the next level of discovery and classification. Sensitive data intelligence is actually giving you intelligence behind that PII. And because of that, because we're using reference data to understand your data that's being processed for business reasons, then we can give you a very high accurate inventory out of the box, where we do data at rest, structured data, unstructured data, data in motion, and we look at really any environment. And because of that, and because we built it all within our organization, it means that we're much more able to scale. And we're able to provide that right context across your entire data set within your organization. Again, structured, unstructured, data rest, data in motion, on-prem, mainframe, and cloud, private cloud, etc. So we're very, very proud of what we've achieved because we're kind of like that company that you've never really heard of. As I said before, we OEM with IBM, so you'll see many organizations around the world where we're powering some of their technologies. We're ISTC, and if you like, it's kind of like the Kaspersky of data management. We're there running in the background, providing data to many different uses. and we're proud of the fact that we are very accurate out of the box. We scale very quickly because of our architecture. We scan. You'll see other solutions in the market that are taking sampling. We actually scan the entire database because again, or file share, because again, we're looking for that business context, which means that we're far more valuable, like for like, with solutions enterprises that have compared us to other solutions. So when we think about the journey of data maturity, it all starts at having that contextual classification. And remember, just a reminder, contextual AI classification is the idea that you can create relationships between entities based on business reason or business context, right? That is what we do. We're creating the relationship between entities, not just because they're PII, and not only because they're PII, but because we attach that business context. That makes it so much easier when it comes to contextual compliance and passing audits. Tell me what you're doing with your employer data. So we'll find all the copies in your entire network based on the fact that it's employer data. And obviously in more sensitive environments, you have different types of data. What this enables in turn is a much higher level of automated governance, because we're now able to share this information with all sorts of solutions. We were a solution that was built with API first, if you could say. In other words, providing the data to third-party solutions that enables a dynamic response. And there's a new era of federated data management where it's all about how do you provide the continuous insight to your data, to different teams, but yet provide the teams the independence to work with that data to achieve their business objectives. So, one final reminder, we're a one pane of glass that's used to better uncover all uses of customer data. This includes structured, unstructured, private, on-prem data, REST data motion. But really also when we come to on-prem, oftentimes people will create databases or file shares that they've got no idea about. So we know about the unknown databases or file shares and the unknown data within those unknown databases or file shares. And once again, we don't just do a sampling, we scan the entire data source. And we run our contextual intelligence over that. And the customer now can use that for total visibility, protection prioritization, attack surface area reduction, and to enable federation amongst a few examples amongst them all. Alon, over to you.
Thank you, mate. Let me do the presentation. Thanks. So yeah, now as Zach mentioned, right, it all starts with the discovering classification, but then we need to take it one step forward and move it through the remediation part. About SecuPy, founded seven years ago, we are serving over 100 global 2,000 customers. You see a few of those notable brands here, and we really are the leaders of the category that Gartner has named DSP, Data Security Platforms. As it means, Data Security Platform means the consolidation of different facets of the past. Right? In the past, you would have a tool for masking, you would have a tool for encryption, you would have a tool for monitoring databases, like database monitoring tools. You would have tools for controls. And Gartner has defined that in a single category called DSP, looking for a platform that will be able to do both monitor as well as control access to all sensitive data. Another way to look at it is from the prism of different personas. Right? Eventually, once you detect the sensitive data, you want to be able to restrict access on a need-to-know basis. You want to de-identify or de-risk the data. And there's many places where sensitive data is found, and hence that's the good job that OneTouch, our partners, are doing. But once you detect the sensitive data, then there are different perspectives to take. One perspective is to look at the sensitivity of the data, identify the critical data elements, and look for de-risking this data through the lens of encryption, masking, deletion. Right? Deletion comes to mind when you think about GDPR, CIPRA, PDPA. all those privacy regulations are talking about deletion of customer data. So hence, de-risking the data that OneTouch is detecting, but also we want to control all ways to the data. What does it mean to control all ways of the data? All ways of the data means that you need to look at the different personas that are in mind. For example, privileged users, DevOps, developers, cloud admins. There's also our analysts, data scientists, the focus of AI and analytics. Those personas also have access to a huge amount of data. Business users, and in many cases, large organizations are deploying data and using offshore teams, third party. Right? Another way to look at it is to focus on a persona, such as analyst and data scientist, and look on how are they accessing the data. They might be accessing the data through Power BI or Tableau. They might be using their Jupyter notebooks. And we want to ensure that their activities are performed on a need-to-know basis. Need-to-know basis for analysts might be translated into the fact that they are allowed to run groups and aggregations and whatever, trends, etc., but they're not allowed to double-click into a specific individual or a specific customer person in Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift, BigQuery, etc. Right? So one way to protect the data once OneTouch detects it is to control how analysts and data scientists are accessing this data. Again, allowing them to do aggregations and AI work, but definitely not allowing them to drill down and to look at the celebrity data or a politician or a VIP customer data. Similarly, when we're talking about privileged users, developers, DBAs, cloud admins, they need to administer the databases, but definitely they're not allowed to look at the CEO salary, right? So also different personas are using different tools and applications to access the data, and we want to control also their ways of the data, and hence other types of control such as dynamic masking, dynamic encryption, which is also a great way to have a quick compliance with PCI DSS, but also real-time monitoring and auditing. It's not only enough to know where sensitive data is found, but also who's accessing this data in real time. So we're able, for example, to alert the SOC team that such an event is occurring. So the entire tooling that is required to achieve this zero trust data protection through the beginning of the classification to the remediation includes all of those different controls: monitoring, dynamic masking, fine-grained access controls, row, column, cell level, logical deletion, physical deletion, encryption, tokenization, and masking for production as well as non-production. Right? And what we have built in Secupy is this data security platform that encapsulates all of those capabilities into one. Double-clicking on that, eventually we are polling the classifications, the tags, the identification that we get from OneTouch, and through the definition of policies, we're able to enforce controls and the risking of the data, both on starting with still on mainframes. Right? Large organizations are massively still using mainframes, or at least for the foreseeable future. So starting with the mainframe, the Oracle SQL servers, but quickly thereafter going to cloud. In cloud, we mean we have customers who protect thousands of RDS databases, Azure SQLs, NoSQL data stores like Mongo, through applications running on native cloud, as well as using different ingestion tools and DirectDB tools. So with the ability of Secupy to apply enforcements, we call it those enforcers, that we are able to plug into the data flows, we're able to restrict access on a need-to-know basis. Very important note to that is the need to do that with no code changes. And here a bit of an insight. Many encryption tools out there, many encryption tokenization solutions are either applying those controls on the disk level. In AWS, everything is encrypted, right? But it is encrypted on the disk level. And this does not suffice, for example, for PCI, is not enough to protect the data. Why? Because everybody can see the data in clear. as you're well aware when you are logging into your AWS environment. But then when you try to apply the encryption on a data level, many vendors are providing you with a REST API to call an encryption function, right? They call it just change one line of code, encrypt the data, call the encryption. But then one line of code means an impossible implementation project, because the one line of code means that you need to change, to recode every place where you're using the data, to encrypt it and to decrypt it, to call the encryption function and the decryption function. And this has caused most of the implementation of encryption and tokenization project worldwide to fail, doing that on the data level. And that's why with SecuPy, we innovated there as well, because our enforcers allow you to apply encryption tokenization with zero code changes. And that's, of course, something very important to our customers. The result of that, of course, is, and this is an example of dynamic masking, right? When you have now privileged users or offshore teams that want to access customer data, or maybe you are under the CMC or under GDPR or under HIPAA, right? A basic notion for that would be to reduce access on a need-to-know basis. And here, SecuPy is just applying dynamic masking on the addresses, first name, last name of your VIP customers. Right? This is just, an example of once SecuPy is deployed with OneTouch, the discovery classification would tag the PII, and SecuPy will come thereafter and apply the risking of the data through the dynamic masking, as well as masking for non-production, encrypting, tokenization, etc. Another example is when we're lifting data to cloud, right? And we might be using different ingestion tools, Glue, Azure Data Factory, NiFi, Kafka, of course, but also other tools. So here, a common use case for the joint value proposition is to have SecuPy and OneTouch deployed, and we will be using SecuPy agents that are pre-built for all of those different ingestion tools to encrypt customer names before the data goes to cloud, which means that John Smith will be encrypted to HDDA, for example, an encrypted value. The data in the different cloud data platforms will always be encrypted, and then the time it will be decrypted is when the data is being consumed by an authorized user. Whether this is a legal that needs to decrypt the data, but of course, analysts that want to double-click and identify a VIP or celebrity name, they will only see their first name. They will not be able to see the last name, and they will only be able to see the last 6 digits of their phone number. Okay? So the identification and re-identification in the ingestion state and in the consuming application, both are very important to provide a cohesive data protection posture on your sensitive data. When we talk about encryption tokenization, right, we are usually deploying the following functions: partial encryption, tokenization. Of course, everything needs to keep the format, AES encryption, AED encryption. But over and beyond that, we might want to apply some bucketing for HIPAA, for safe harbor. People over the age of 70 needs to be identified in one way. So we will bucket and round their birth date, their age, dynamic masking, as I showed you, but also replacing obfuscation of data, so we can even scramble, for example, names when we send data to a test facility, or when we are just taking data from our production RDS to test UAT and development environments to apply the risking of this data when it goes to a lower environment. Another important note about that is a unique development that SecuPy has done for our customers, which is called type-safe encryption. What happens is that when you take a date and just encrypt it using format preserving, you might get strange dates, right? 38130066 is the same format of the date, but that's not a valid date. It's just the same format, as nobody was born in the Roman Empire time. And SecuPy not only does the format preserving encryption, which is the common standard today, but we have also taken one step ahead and apply type-safe encryption. So we also keep the type of the column. Why is it important? Because if you use just formal preserving encryption and you need to change the column type from a date to an alphanumeric, then you cannot run range. You cannot run between. Because it has stopped to be a date from the data source perspective, and hence keeping the type of the column is very important for a successful implementation. That's a bit introduction about the SecuPy. Now back to you, Zach.
So thank you very much. I'm just going to bear with me a second. Let me just get my screen up there. Alon, could we work off your screen, please?
Sure.
I seem to have challenges here. Thank you very much.
Sure, no worries. Yeah.
So, you know, a final note on contextual AI, and this is really the game changer, is that everyone's using AI. Actually, if you look on the internet and do a simple search, you say OneTouch.io supervised AI. We've actually been working on this since 2020, and what we're seeing is the proliferation of the use of unstructured data, and how much of a problem it's just becoming. And let's tie everything together. So when it comes to unstructured data, the only real way to understand it is if you have a supervised AI model. A supervised AI model means that your system will have in it the tools that you can manipulate the AI of the system to understand the data in your organization. And that's a huge paradigm shift. Till now, and when you look at some of these first generation solutions, what you need to do is a lot of work around the processes and the people within your organization so that the technology can fit. What OneTouch.io offers is this supervised AI wizard, as it were, that says, okay, well, these are the basic data elements you've got. Configure this in such a way so that you can understand your unstructured data. And by comparing that to your reference data, you're going to get very highly accurate results in terms of what data you're actually processing. And so when we think about contextualized AI, we're adding onto that the idea that within supervised AI, you can create that context and you can say, okay, well, when you see these unstructured data elements together, and when you see it linked to structured data, then this is the business context that should denote. You can also create a business context by simply having a list. Organizations, unfortunately, they may have multiple lists. So which list is the right list that you want to use in order to have that reference data? Because you could have multiple lists. And so what OneTouch.io provides, using supervised AI as well, is taking multiple lists together and creating a virtualized list against which you can use as reference data to find any copies or incidents of your most precious customer data or sensitive data throughout your network. And so when we think about business context, it's really an enabler. It gives improved agility to the organization to compete on a global level. Data democratization, because it means that different departments can carry on about their business without being confined with regard to security and security protections, as we see very, very often. You're going to see a reduction of cost because it's going to be much easier to see which data is out of use, which data is repeated. In fact, rot data, right? Redundant, obsolete, trivial data. Now that you can understand the context at the classification time, then it means that you're going to be able to reduce the cost of holding that data. Revenue enabler, this idea of just-in-time data visibility or data freshness, it means that you can compete again on the global level. But really, what's behind this is this desire that organizations are having to cut costs, to cut risk, to engage in cost avoidance. And we have seen time and time again that the only way to do that is through contextual analysis of your unstructured and structured data, where you can link throughout your entire organization. I think the next slide is the last slide, Alan.
This is the last slide, I think. Yeah, here it is.
Okay, great.
This is the one.
Yes. Okay. So any questions from everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dustin, maybe perhaps over to you to finish the session.
So, hey guys, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So, tell me, can you guys give us a little more background on, what it is that gets you guys so passionate about, solving challenges in this area? You both have spent a lot of time and, had some questions about what it is that led you guys to make the kinds of investments to really go after this part of the technology challenge in data, and what it is that you personally find, so helpful in this area.
Sure. Maybe I will start. Look, the access on a need-to-know basis, right, is something that is very close and has been very close to my heart for many years. And I'll give you an example from one of our customers, a major organization in Switzerland. What happened there is that a young guy went to the date, and when he returned, he looked up this girl in the CRM system of this large organization system, and SecuPy detected it, and the guy was fired. But when you have, and I'm a father of three, when you think about the fact that your kids' information can be accessed through many systems and applications in organizations, and their privacy can be stolen, and their data can be abused, right? I felt very passionate about solving this challenge, right? And in each one of your organization, you know that there are too many ways to access sensitive data, and hence the network security, the endpoint security, all of those other security tooling out there are not focusing on data. You think about it, everybody wants to protect their data, right? And hence, this is why I'm passionate about solving that from different angles, from different personas, and through different capabilities. Of course, GDPR, CMC, CIPRA, QBacklog 25, right? All the regulators have followed these footsteps into requiring that more and more, right? Even Zero Trust today, the latest release of the Zero Trust architecture includes the transition from a network-centric Zero Trust to data-centric Zero Trust. Now, how do you do Zero Trust data protection? Right? Then you need to know where your sensitive data is found through one touch, and with SecuPy to really restrict it, either de-risking it or controlling all access to that. So that's a bit of about why I'm so passionate about helping large organizations really restrict their access to sensitive data. What about you, Zach?
Well, Zach, I think you're on mute, I'm afraid. There you go.
Yeah, I was. No, I think that everything you said, certainly resonates. And we're seeing this time and time again. And it's one of the reasons why I mentioned very early on that the whole way that OneTouch was built was to provide this data to different protection mechanisms. And like I said before, even just yesterday, we were able to get on together to discuss a mutual customer where they're going to highly benefit from having both solutions within the environment.
That's great. All right, here's some more technical questions about whether this can be hosted on Azure or deployed on premises.
Yeah, it can. We are also serving the US government and the Department of Defense in dark rooms. So for your question, it can be from the dark rooms of the federal to any one of the clouds. Of course, platform support is very, very important to us, and hence the ability to serve customers from all sizes and from the regulated industries, of course, right? We want to be aligned as much as possible to their needs, and hence from a platform, both platform support perspective as well as from deployment, we support everything from dark rooms to JKE, EKS, AKS, etc.
Okay. Let me ask you this too. What, given your guys' experience, having worked in this space, where have you found maybe what has been the most surprising area that you guys, or what have you learned most about where sensitive data is found in places that were most surprising to you or the clients that you've worked with, and that maybe created risks that were unexpected in an organization? There's lots of companies who think they've got a handle on this, and yet I know both of you have had experience of scanning complex systems and found some unusual things. Maybe you can share some examples of where you found sensitive data living in places that were not good.
Yeah, Zach, I'm sure you have some horror stories under your belt.
Yeah, and you don't have to mention a client name, but maybe just mention where data was living.
Well, we actually found in one situation a client had created path names using people's names and national insurance numbers. So if their data was held in a file, then the path to that file said Zach Rubenstein 2097. Well, I won't say the rest of the number, but that was something that we found that was like. We also found within one public company, we're very, very strong in finding production data in non-production environments. And so in one company, we found the shareholdings of the board being held in a lab within the organization. So we've had some pretty cool stuff that we've found.
Very interesting. Very interesting. How about, here's another question too about, how do you handle the politics of getting support across the organization, to get access to the data that you need to run these systems? And do you find you can just start in one area and work your way across, or is it better to get different teams talking at the beginning of an engagement? For folks that are looking at, maybe wanting to hire both of these companies, what would you advise people that want to be champions in their organizations? What's the best way to get started, and who should they involve in the process?
So you start small on one specific use case, which tends to be the highest pain point. That's always good. There's always something, there's always something going on. I can't reveal too much about the specific case we were discussing yesterday, but it's always best to do that way. And I think that one of the things that we like to tell customers is that it's a slowly but surely approach, right? Organizations say, hey, we'll come in, we're going to scan petabytes of data and hundreds, if not thousands, of databases within the first year. In actuality, it doesn't work like that. When we go into an organization, we need to understand what's going on with regard to the business. There is always politics involved. Where can we get those early wins? Once you get those early wins, more people want to become engaged with the joint solution. So I think that would be my first thought on that matter. Alon?
Yeah. That's a great strategy. We try to focus on quick wins, right? Something that is very visual, very noticeable. For example, the dynamic masking, to do it on offshore teams, right? That's for itself focusing on a certain persona, like offshore, DevOps teams. So when they roll into your production databases, at least they see everything X'd out. This is a beautiful, output that we can show to the board, show to the CISO, and get their backing to continue this with other types of personas. So our recommendation is always start, in something that is provides a substantial risk reduction, and hence privileged users are usually a good place to start, with the ability to restrict, to control, to identify, as well as, of course, non-production data stores, right? And Zach, right? We found too many places where they have critical data in non-production, in the development, SQL server somewhere, right? So de-risking this data, masking it, encrypting it, it's also a very good place to start. And once success is there, right, and everybody is on board and they take it and continue that through other types of personas and use cases. And of course, there's also the compelling event of regulation. I had a call last week with a Fortune 50 car manufacturer, and now they need to embed consent. When you think about it, consent for a car manufacturer, every telemetry that every car around the world is pushing them now needs to be associated with a level of consent. Consent can also have different attributes to that. What type of consent? Consent for analytics, consent for a repair, consent for some kind of service, right? So think of such a use case where additional layers of controls are required on the data. So all of these are coming very fast. So it's both, right, the basic notion of restricting access for the privileged users and in non-production, but then also regulations knocks on the door and urges those things for implementation, like the example of consent for a car manufacturer, but for HIPAA, right, for the different financial regulations, and even cyber insurance, right? Cyber insurance, to reduce the huge cost of cyber insurance, they ask you now to encrypt the data, right, to de-risk the data. So all of those things come to fruition in a great tailwind that is helping SecuPy and OneTouch to onboard our platform in more and more customers.
That's great. Let me ask you as well. I got two last questions. One about federation, and where do you start with that? Do you start in your company? Do you go in your supply chain? How do you think about trying to get leverage beyond just maybe the immediate things that are, you know, that are contained in the groups that you start with? How do you think about, I don't know, starting a federation project and how that grows over time? And then the second question is about, you know, risks around quantum computing. You know, are you guys seeing that on the horizon, driving behavior, and how, you know, how are you guys and your companies, you know, helping to address the threats of quantum computing getting in the hands of hackers and creating havoc, you know, out there in the marketplace? Those are the two final questions for you guys.
Yeah. So I will take the second one, Zach, if you can take the first one. So for quantum computing, so we provide what we call quantum resilience. We follow the NIST standard. The NIST standard are expecting to release an encryption that has this quantum resilience into that. We are working with the NIST in order to define that, and they are validating different options to create an encryption resilient encryption algorithm that once, and they already have released one, which has failed. And now we are working together to create an enhanced one that we hopefully will get to the target to be truly quantum decryption resilient. So we're following that. And all our enforcers, right? The SecuPy, once SecuPy is deployed, we have those enforcers that are applying encryption to the data. Once this quantum resilient encryption algorithm will be released by NIST, hopefully in the next few months, we will be able just, you know, to onboard this new resiliency to our customer install base.
So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat, and I know we're running out of time here, but actually we're seeing that a lot. You know, I was just talking to one of the big four, and they see this as something potentially bigger than Y2K because it's everywhere. And of course, the big challenge really is there's so much data out there. Which one is the most important data that are being protected by some of the old sort of style encryption, and even, you know, where does that encryption lie? So we're certainly hearing about it more. And in fact, the SIs are beginning to create teams called market makers, which is literally what they're going to be focusing on next, and we're going to see that really expand, I believe, towards the end of this year and next year, because the SIs are certainly preparing for an uptick in queries around that.
Yeah. Cool.
That's great. Great. And yeah, and on federation, and any other thoughts, final thoughts on the value of thinking beyond your, you know, your department or your company into federation and how to get that kind of a project running, Zach?
Yeah, so actually federation, when we think about federation data, what we're seeing is an alignment between major data stakeholders, whether it's big data and AI for business purposes, whether it's data governance in terms of who has access to that data, whether it's security, how you protect that data. So as we see federation of data and making understanding of that data more accessible to multiple teams, what we're looking to see is better collaboration between the teams on that data. Because there's certainly a push it over the fence type of feeling now. Oh, that's not my problem, that's someone else's problem. So those are my quick thoughts around that topic.
That's great. All right, any final questions from any other participants? Now would be the time, or we're going to wrap things up if I don't see anything else pop up. Appreciate everyone attending this event. We really appreciate all the sponsors and folks that have helped us learn so much as customers and partners in our community. Alon and Zach, we appreciate you guys spending the time to share your best practice expertise and doing all the great work that you both have as leaders in the space. And again, we want to just say thanks to everybody that attended this webinar. We're going to try to be pushing out a webinar every couple weeks here, so please stay on the schedule. There's lots of important topics that we can cover, and this is just one of those webinars in a good series that we're rolling out. And we wish everybody a great week. And thanks very much for attending today. We will talk to you all very soon. Thank you for attending. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye
guys.
now.
Bye.